Okay, welcome everybody. As you know, it's 2 years are up again, and were reappointed in December by our Common Council. And every time that you're appointed for another 2-year election cycle, you need to go through some kind of training. So that's why we are here today. Our first, I'm not going to get into our first election because I have that on one of my slides. Oops, wrong one. Okay. So we all signed in. You did your W-4s and updated your direct deposit with HR. If you didn't, or if you think maybe you have a question about it, you can go, I'll show you where they are up on the 3rd floor, and then you can make contact with them after the training. So just make sure that everything is up to date, otherwise you won't be paid. And then for some reason they blame me if you're not paid. Right now, everybody, do you have your oath of office? We're going to do the oath of office. I always feel this is so important because this is where the media gets me sometimes when they talk about elections and that they're not fair and they're not equal. But we take this oath of office saying that we will do the best that we can. So I think it's important for all of us to raise our right hand. I, and state your name.
I,
having been appointed to the office of election inspector. Okay, now some of you are chief inspector. Chief Inspector John, you say Chief Inspector.
Chief Inspector.
And Special Voting Deputy. If you go to the nursing home, say you're also a Special Voting Deputy, and that's what you're doing your oath for today. But have not yet entered upon the duties. Swear that I will support. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution. Of the State of Wisconsin. And will faithfully discharge. The duties of said office. To my best ability. So help me God. Okay, if you could please sign that and pass everything to the center aisle, and Megan will collect them. Also today, you should have picked up your handout. Does everybody have a handout with our exercises in it? Okay. Today we're going to cover the duties of your chief inspector and also the election inspectors. We'll go over the pre-election planning and the opening of the polls, election day procedures, and some of the issues, problems, and concerns that we have on election day. And while we're going through the training, feel free to ask questions. Why do we have this training today? The training today is to ensure that elections are open, fair, impartial, and trusted. And it is to give you some knowledge and confidence in what you're doing, so that when you're at the polls, that when you have a disruptive voter, that you feel somewhat confident in what you are instructing them to do. And it is to provide consistency and uniformity to ensure elections are somewhat the same throughout the state. That's why the clerks are giving the training at the local level. Our 2020 elections, the first one will be February 18th. Just to give you a little background on that election, there's one race on that ballot, and that's for the state Supreme Court Justice. So it's 3 people, it's not an election, it's only a primary, so you're only eliminating one person. And then the 2 top vote getters go on to the April election, which will be on April 7th. April 7th is the spring elections, so we have some contested races here in the city. District 3 is contested, along with District 7, and the mayor race is contested. With that excitement, we also have the presidential preference, and there are 14 candidates for the Democratic Party and 1 candidate for the Republican Party, and that will all be on the ballot. So at the April election, I want to do a split poll book, not because it's going to be that busy. It might be busy. I mean, this way, we're going to do a split poll book just to get you ready for the November election, because it's a little bit different procedures, helps with your chief inspectors, make sure they have their polling locations set up to the best that they can. So it'd be a great time to start that. August 11th is our partisan primary. Of course, I've always voted this way, but at the August primary, you always have to pick a party and vote within your party. That's been the law since 1925 or something like that. So they cannot vote for every office in August. That's just August. November 6th is going to be our general election along with our presidential preference. Our presidential election, not preference. That's in April.
Is that correct?
Okay, any questions?
The November date?
Did I have it wrong? I thought it was the 7th. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the 3rd.
Megan, help me.
The 3rd?
The 3rd is going to be the general election?
Well, it's the first Tuesday after the first Monday.
Okay, the 3rd then. This was the one I had in the last training. I bet it is. We'll find out when I get to the pre-foot.
The August 11th, which is, it says partisan primary, where you stand in one party. So will that be for the presidential, will it be for what, the one topic?
The question was what races will be on the August 11th. Nothing to do with the presidential race will be on August. But it would be your county races that would have a party I'm not sure if the county clerk is on that one or your clerk of courts and your sheriff. But at the county level, then at the state level, it might be your state senators or races like that. I'm not real sure, but I know it has nothing to do with the presidential race at the August election. All right, I might have the dates goofed up there. I think it's November 3rd. August 11th, do I have that right?
That's what I have.
Okay. Sorry about that. Then we'll go on to the chief inspector duties. The chief inspector is in charge of your polling location. The chief inspector shall assign duties, and the chief inspector will refer any questions to the municipal clerk. We get numerous questions from your chief inspector from the polling locations on election day. That's expected. That's what I like to see, the chief inspector calling us, so we don't have all these different stories, all these different people calling me. So that the chief inspector is handling the problems at the polling on election day. And the chief inspector has to go through additional training. 3 additional baseline training hours are required. If anybody is interested in becoming a chief inspector, I can get you set up right here at City Hall, and everything is online now. Amy, you just recently completed that, Amy Schmidt?
A year ago.
A year ago. Was it difficult? You did everything online, correct? Yep. So it's something that you can do online, and then you can become a chief inspector, and then you can have all the problems. Dick?
Refresher courses coming up too, or can we just do it again?
You can do it again if you want. I can get you set up.
Yeah,
Sure,
please.
no problem. No. Yeah, things are changing all the time. I try to keep you up to date, but there's things that I do miss too. I can't remember your name, Raul? Gene, I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you're chief inspector, you gotta take the training again this year?
For chief inspector? No. You just have that 3 additional training, and then before elections, the chief inspectors usually get together with me, just the chief inspectors, and we'll go over some of the issues or problems, or somehow try to make your life a little easier at the polling location on election day, especially with the presidential one. I especially will have you together, get everybody together to go over some things. So other than that, you don't ever have to repeat the 3-hour training, the additional training, but if you want to, you most definitely can. So, okay. All right, then I'll go on to the election inspector duties. You might be registering voters on election day. Typically, your chief inspectors are doing this at your polling locations. Record electors in the poll books. Issue ballots that are initialed by 2 election inspectors. Monitor voting equipment, especially at District 3. Arlene's battery likes to go beep, beep, beep.
I know what to do with it.
Yeah. Hopefully we sent that machine in. Yep, it did have an issue,
It
so
did.
you should be good to go.
I know it did.
And complete required forms. Sign, sign, sign. Before you leave for the day, I know some of you work split shifts, always make sure, ask your chief inspector, do I have everything signed? So that we don't have to call anybody in the next day to have some documents signed. So it's always important to make sure you sign everything that is appropriate. And we'll go over the signatures on the last slide. And all other duties that are signed by your chief inspectors are also expected from the election workers. Okay, here's your first challenge. Polling place is set up before 7 a.m., because I know Dick's always done before 7, and a voter needs to get to work right away. What do you do?
Can't vote.
Can't vote before 7 o'clock.
That's correct. You cannot vote before 7 o'clock. You have to just say, I'll announce when the polls are open at 7 a.m. Doesn't matter what kind of hurry they're in. But I have to. You're going to hear every excuse. But that's the way it has to be. Don't let anybody vote before 7 a.m. because let me tell you, I would hear about it about 7:05. I just got to vote early.
Your clock is set to 8 o'clock on that slide.
Is it?
Yes.
I can't. I'm not that good. Oh, it is, 8 o'clock.
That's the time it closed today.
No, you're really paying attention. Okay, our poll books, our poll list. First of all, you have your regular poll list. These are where all your registered voters are in the poll book. Then you have your pre-printed supplemental poll list. These are your voters that registered after the 20th day before election. I know, it's clear as mud. So next week, Wednesday, I believe that's January 28th, will be the 20th day before the February 18th election. That's the last day they can mail in their voter registrations. After that day, up until the Friday before election, they have to vote in the clerk's office. All them voters are put on a different list. It's called a supplemental list. It's printed out just like your regular poll book, but it prints out alphabetically, meaning that if I had one person with the last name that began with M, there's only going to be one person on that sheet. Then I might have somebody that's voted with the last letter of S. So these are at the back of your poll book. They're hard to find. A trigger will be they have a voter registration certificate. I believe they're yellow. They're on gold paper. When that voter pulls that out and says, well, I just registered, that's a trigger that, okay, it's on that supplemental list. Look on the back of your poll book. They'll look crazy because you're going to have one A, maybe 3 G's, and it'll look like you're at the end of the poll book, but if you flip it over, there's another voter till you get to the end of that supplemental list. The third part to your poll list are the people that register on election day. This is also called a supplemental poll list because they're running out of names. And this is the one where you have to fill out anybody that registers on election day. You put their name and address, and they have to sign that supplemental poll book. I'll get into that a little bit more in a couple slides. And the last one is our confidential voters. I believe we have 3 confidential voters that are registered now in the city of West Bend. There's this program, it's called Safe at Home, and these voters are registered by their confidential voter number. So, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit. Eric's supplemental poll list, of course, we have to have the 5th one. This should be going away, but you heard about the fight down in Madison because the state sent out all these cards that 2 people that look like they voted, or they moved out of state. But as we get into this presentation a little more, that's not up to anybody to take them off that list. If they have an intent to come back, they should be registered here. And that's where the argument is down in Madison. You're saying that it looks like they moved because they might be even a snowbird. And we had a lot of people that were on that supplemental that had to get put back on the poll list. So that supplemental list is a separate poll book that was printed out and that you could look at on election day, and if that person was registered at that address, not just because their name was on there, but they had to be at that address, and then they could vote in that poll list. And then we brought them back into the regular poll list. We didn't, the state had to move them into there. So I will get into the poll list, some of these a little bit more. So I explained the printed supplemental poll list because I'm an overachiever, but here it talks about the certificate of registration and how they're printed alphabetically. So there's nothing we can do. It doesn't make any sense to me why they just can't be in the regular poll list, why these are different than any other voters, just because they registered within that 20th day before election. Election day supplemental list, these are the ones that register on election day. One thing to remember is just make one supplemental registration or supplemental poll list on election day. That's your goldenrod sheets. They're gold color. You just have to fill out one of them. So that has the voter name on, address, and signature.
And the voter number.
The voter number, yes, you're right.
But why do you say only one? Sometimes we go to 4, 5, 6 pages.
Well, not pages. Some were doing two set identical poll lists. We only need one done, and then we copy it. So, good question.
Second.
Yes.
So if there, I'm thinking mostly like November, if you have like 2 sections of registration going on, you could have one list here and one list there.
Absolutely.
You're just not duplicating.
Correct. Yep, you just don't have to make 2 of them. You could have more than one list going, as long as it's not the same voters on the list. So, yep, and you're right, that is the best way to do it. Notations in the poll book, these are ones that have to be done in red. And this is the part I'm going to get to, that's so much fun. So your notations, if you have somebody that votes provisional, if you have someone that's going to be a challenged voter, you're going to put in there the reason that that voter was challenged and their voter number, because we will go through challenge documentation a little bit. If someone is assisted, I know this happens quite a bit at the polls. They get to the ballot and then they turn around and say, oh, can you help me? All right, you already got the ballot. You're way past the poll book. So how should we make that notation in a poll book? If you catch it, if you say, well, who's so-and-so going to help? And you can put it down and you found that person in the poll book, write it down. But if you miss somebody, I mean, we're only human. So it is good to write it down if they were assisted, but if you miss it, you miss it.
Assisted by the person's name.
Right, and it should be that person's name.
And a lot of times it would be one of us, one of our poll workers.
That's right, and that poll worker name should go in there. If it's assisted by John. No, you don't write it on the ballot. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, you sign it. That person that's doing assisting has to sign that ballot. There's a line back there that says assisted by on your ballots.
And that's in red also.
It should be in red, but now the machine is set up that it doesn't pick that up. So if it isn't in red, if it's in black, it won't pick, it'll be fine. So, yep.
I don't believe that when I see it.
So can it be,
Ambiguous
can
marks.
it be a family member or spouse?
It can be anybody. Anybody but a member of your union. And Megan, do you remember another one that cannot assist you at the polls? There's one other one I can't be in the poll. What's that?
Poll watcher?
A candidate.
Candidate, yeah.
Observer, you're right. Yep, observer can't be in there. Yep. Yep. So then if the person had curbside voting, of course you're going to write in there because they don't have to, they're exempt from signing the poll book also. They are not exempt from showing their photo ID. So in the poll book you're going to say exempt by where they have to sign their name, and then you're going to put on their curbside voting. Curbside voted. Any
Is right in the poll book? Is that what you said?
Yes, you want to write it in the poll book in red. Everything is in red except for the numbers. So, if you have any typing errors, if you know somebody that we typed their name wrong or their middle initial is wrong and you're pretty sure that, L could have been an R or whatever, just write it in there in red. And then when we go through the poll book, if we see them, we'll go and change that in their voter registration. Now, bear in mind, we have 8 districts, and we try to do our best to find all these corrections. So sometime you might go back and I changed this last time. Well, you can cuss at me. I missed it, so we try our best to catch all of them.
We have once in a while, of course, people that come through and they see their spouse's name on and they've passed, and they want it taken off.
Yep, and then we will. You'll write
Right.
deceased right there in red.
We should write deceased.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
You'll have to verify that first, though.
Yeah, how you verify
Well,
that?
we do it through obituaries in the paper. You
Well, I
can do
know,
it by
but-
word of mouth.
But I
Yeah.
mean,
If you're pretty certain, I mean, if it's a neighbor or something, I think my neighbor passed away, then I wouldn't do it. But if it's a spouse that comes through and says, my
Because I was told a while back that we would just tell them that eventually if they don't vote, if that name doesn't vote, within a couple of years, it's taken off.
That's that 4-year purge. That's different than the ERIC poll list. Yes, yes, that is a 4-year purge. A 4-year purge that they do every 2 years.
not often enough.
Well, they can look if you haven't voted in the last 4 years, then they'll go back, but they do it every 2 years. So, and now, this is my favorite part, there are no more absentees at the polls. No more writing a number with the capital A. So, you ask, well, where did the absentees go? They are now, absentees will be counted at Central Count. Central Count is located here at City Hall. So your Central Count Committee is comprised of the clerk and 2 from the individual parties that are there. But typically, I need 5 to 7 people working Central Count to run all your absentees through. At the last governor's race, we had 5, 7 people working, and just so that we got done counting all the absentees. So how did we expect you to do it all at the polls? So, you're to be commended that you were able to do all that. But now I expect you to do a lot of the voter registrations at the polls. So your work didn't go away. So there's no more processing absentee ballots at the polls. No more marking your numbers with a capital A. No more remaking or duplicating a ballot. So you won't have to remake one. The only ones that were ever remade were your absentees. If somebody at the polls needs a second ballot, you're issued a second ballot. They're not remade or redone. If somebody walks out the door and their ballot is there and it's rejected, it didn't go through, you have to put cast. You have to push cast. It'll count every race that was voted correctly, but it won't count the one that they might have overvoted or where there was a mistake that the machine couldn't read. So no more remaking them, and no more insufficient envelopes, your absentee envelopes that were missing, like the witness address or something like that, and then you had to wait till 8 o'clock to reject all of them. We now at Central Count, we have that fund, so you don't have to do any of that. I feel the love right now. So, what do you do if somebody brings an absentee ballot to the polls?
Go to clerk. Go to the city hall.
If you could, just ask them if they could deliver it to City Hall. If they can't, if you can see that they just so that they got it to your polling location. You could keep it at your polling location, have your chief inspector give us a call. We will come and pick it up. But it is the best if they could deliver it to City Hall. All ballots have to be delivered here by 8 o'clock. So if this is getting to be close to 8 o'clock, you want to give me a call and we'll have to get out there to get it. So.
Just a question. What if somebody walks in with an absentee ballot that they did not fill in? Like they're there to vote, but they bring the ballot with them.
Tell them to go throw it out in their car. You don't want to even see it. We will get into that.
Okay.
It's one of the challenges that are coming up. Let's say that somebody appears before you and they're on the absentee log. They're on it says absentee ballot issued or returned, and it will say it by their name on the poll list. So if that does happen, as long as they didn't return it or didn't vote it, they can be issued a voter number and a ballot on election day at the polls. So as long as, if they say, well, I'm not sure she got that ballot, that's too bad. As they put it in the mail, they voted. If they're trying to fool us and they're thinking, well, they voted absentee and now they're gonna vote at the polls because they gave such a convincing story and you let them vote, what will happen is when we're entering votes into SVR, or I call it SVR, into Wiz vote, it will say this voter voted already. Well, at central count, I know some people doesn't like this, but we've heard this before, it's the law. And at central count, your absentee ballot, that voter number gets put on the back of the ballot, like Arlene was talking. And so the next day, if somebody already voted and they voted absentee, the absentee ballot will be pulled. So they won't be able to vote twice. Because everybody's trying to think, no, I voted absentee, I'll go to the polls quick and vote too. It won't work that way. They are numbered, the ballots.
Does that mean that everybody that requested an absentee ballot has to come in with an excuse to vote real? I mean, they got it, but I'm fine, I'm going
Yes.
after all?
Yeah. If they were sent an absentee ballot, it will say absentee issued by their name in the poll book. Then they're going to have to tell you why, did you return it? Because you can't just, because if it said absentee returned, you can pretty much guarantee it was returned.
Yeah.
But if it said absentee issued, let's say I got it on election day in the mail, it's not going to be in your poll book yet. So you have to ask them, did you vote by absentee?
And what if they say, no, I threw it out because I'm fine, I decided to come to the polls?
Yep, then they can vote.
Oh.
They can vote at the polls.
You can also check your log sheets too.
Yeah.
Yes, the log.
Yeah, there will be an absentee log yet at the polls, so that we have to provide to all the polling locations yet. So you can check that too, and it'll tell you. Sometimes if we can catch it like the day before if it came in the mail, we'll write it in red, returned, on the log. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't do it all. We try. Megan can, I can't. I don't know. Does everybody know me? I don't think I introduced myself. I got so excited here. I'm Stephanie Justmann. I've been with the city for 3 years, in case you're new to the election process. And before I worked here, I worked for the village of Kewaskum for 9 years. And before that, I worked for the Dodge County as a deputy clerk in the county clerk's office. And also, I'd like to introduce Megan, who is my chief deputy clerk now. They gave Megan a new job title. She's not just deputy clerk, because as you might know, Jean is absent because she retired. She retired on January 3rd, so we're in the, yep. Oh, I thought maybe everybody knew that. So Jean retired. We're right in the process of doing interviews, so the new person won't probably be up to speed yet for the February 18th election. It'll take a couple years. So.
John wants to apply for it.
What's that? What should I tell Jean?
He's going to apply for Jean's job.
Oh, okay. Come on in, John. I always push the wrong buttons. Okay, voter is before you is on the absentee log, and we went through that. If they say that they didn't vote it, they didn't get it, then you have to let them vote at the polls. Okay, issuing the ballot and voting. So when a voter comes in, they have to state their name and address. And they have to show their photo ID. Photo ID. Then after that, you assign them a voter number, and is recorded. The number is put in both books. Only one book is signed. If the voter is unable to sign their name because of disability, and you can obviously see that as election workers, you can write exempt by the order of the election workers, or just write exempt and initial it, or however you want to do it. And then that voter is issued the appropriate ballot, initialed by 2 election inspectors. Is that easy? So, challenge number 3, voter is unable to sign a poll book because of disability. What are you gonna do? Right, exempt, correct. Voter refuses to sign the poll book. What are you gonna do?
Bad person.
Don't give them a ballot.
She cannot vote, or that person cannot vote.
What's that?
No number either. And you will not issue a ballot, and you will not issue a number.
That's correct. You cannot issue them a ballot, and they will not get a voter number. They have to sign. They can mark an X, they can scribble whatever they want, or they can write whatever they want, but they have to sign the poll book in order to vote.
So it can't, then you can, there's nothing to be, the ballot can't be entered into the machine?
No, they're
No,
getting no
they
ballot.
don't, they do not get a ballot.
No ballot.
Yep, no ballot.
Or they ask them home.
Has anybody ever had any problems like that, that anybody didn't want to sign the poll book? You did?
No, not that, but I had
Okay.
a person who did not want to show me a photo ID. She
Okay.
had a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
She said that there was a legal reason.
Well, only if you're Amish, you wouldn't have one. So they will still have a photo, they'll have an identification, but without their photo on it. So other than that, I'm not aware of anything.
She wasn't one of the three.
What's that?
If you're abused, one of the three.
That's the confidential.
Then you mean confidential voter? Then they vote by number, right? They're exempt from the photo ID.
So that might have been what she
That
did.
would have been, sure. Okay, we'll get into confidential voters a little bit later. How about a voter whispers their name and address?
Ask them to speak up.
You repeat
What are you gonna do?
You repeat it.
Of course, it's happened at the polls all the time. I'm there and it's like, oh, hi, how you doing? You know, it's your neighbor, you're talking. They don't even say their name and address sometimes. What are you gonna do if somebody whispers their name and address?
You repeat it.
You repeat it correctly. You're gonna say it loudly. All right, Sam Smith, 225 North Main. Yes?
Yeah, one thing that gets me is that once upon a time I was an observer. They have to speak their name so the observer can hear it.
Yes.
Not just, you know, it's gotta be.
Absolutely. That is one of the reasons. I will get into some of the other reasons why you need to hear their name and address and why their address. I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay, so proof of identification and proof of residency. Two different things. Your proof of ID, your photo ID, is required every time you vote. Proof of residency is required when you register to vote. Proof of ID proves your picture and your name. Photo ID proves where you reside, your address. So you never need to see your photo ID when you are registering, and you never need to give your proof of residency when you're voting. Everybody looks confused. We'll get into this. Acceptable photo IDs. And this is where you are right. It was November 6th, 2018. So that's where I got the November 6th on my last presentation, on that last slide. So I never updated the new election day. Because I probably got interrupted. My phone probably rang. Your photo ID can be expired as of the last general election. So that was November 6, 2018. Photo ID, not proof of residency. Proof of residency, you will find out, cannot be expired. And this is a typical driver's license, veteran's card you can use, student ID. You have a question?
When you said the photo ID can be expired, what does that mean?
It can be expired. Let's say you didn't renew your driver's license and it expired. It can be re-expired as long as it was expired after November 6, 2018.
Okay,
Then you can still use that as a photo ID when you're voting.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Did you have?
Challenge number 5. Confidential voter presents a card rather than stating name and address. So What's it gonna make you do? Trigger? What's
Look
it-
for the confidential.
You're gonna look for a confidential voter because they don't vote by their name. So they're exempt, I'm gonna find this in my presentation so I get this correct.
That's in the back of the book with the late registrations, right?
Correct, yes. It's gonna be at the end of your regular poll book. So that poll book that's already pre-printed before it gets to your alphabetical ones, that's where your confidential ones will be, before your supplemental poll list.
Where's that again? See that again?
In the back,
Oh, that's what I
in the
thought.
back, but not way in the back. Because way in the back is gonna be your supplemental poll list, the ones that registered after the 20th day.
So where are these, ahead of that? At the end?
Ahead of that,
Okay,
yes.
so the end of the book, the end of the alphabet, then the
Confidential,
confidential, then the late registrations.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And this card that they have has that corresponding number? Or not in the?
That's correct. That number will be in the poll book. So the confidential voters are identified by number under confidential voter card. They are found at the back of the poll book, and they're exempt from the photo ID requirement. They don't have to show their photo ID. So they just have to show you that card. So that card will not have their picture on it. So that might have been what you were referring to. Not sure.
It's just out of curiosity, why is somebody a confidential voter?
Because they're not safe at home, because they have a hostile home environment at one time. These voters, it's a program, it's called Safe at Home. All their mail, everything is registered to an address in Madison. So that they are living within our community, but just to keep them safe, it's like, yeah, they're under protection.
Who was in an abusive relationship or a stalking issue, like a witness protection type plan?
Yep, program, yes. They will be confidential voters.
The ballot number then goes on that page, or where?
Right, next to their confidential, yep, there will be a line there
Okay.
that they'll get their voter number there, they get their ballot. Yes?
To back up just a bit for acceptable photo ID, what about a credit card with a photo on it?
Nope, credit card won't have a photo on it.
Mine does. Costco does.
Yeah.
I have to look into that. I don't think that was approved yet by the state.
Yeah, it's
It
not
has a
here.
photo and a name.
Yeah, it does.
I think some of the newer ones are doing some
Yeah, well,
that I can't see a word.
we haven't been notified that we can accept them. Megan?
In their election materials, we always have a big printout of the acceptable photo identifications that the state has approved.
Yeah, that
Will that be at the
poster.
polling station?
Yes.
Yep, all the polling locations have that. We have to update that expiration date on them now.
The credit card might not be issued from Wisconsin, so it's gotta be a state ID card. That might
Yeah,
be.
I'm not gonna guess. I just know it's not approved, so we can't use them.
No, if they have that confidential card, they hand you a card,
Yes.
and do they sign the poll book at all, just with their number or something?
Nope,
Nothing?
nothing.
Do they keep the card, or we?
You gotta return it. They have to use that every time they vote. That's issued from me. Yeah, that card comes from me.
So give it back to them.
Yes, give it back to them.
Give it back to them, okay.
Playing with my microphone.
So we're just recording.
The voter number.
Confidential voter number.
The
And
voter
the
number.
ballot number.
It looks, John, you have some on your list,
Yes.
correct? It's just a number there.
Yeah, and I think we did have one or two come in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have a question? No, she's just thinking. Okay. Any other questions about confidential voters?
So they just come in, show you the yellow card, and you hand them a ballot, and they go vote?
Well, you give them a voter number, yes.
Oh, okay.
They'll identify themselves as a confidential voter.
Right.
You have to,
Trigger where
you have to look
The
it up.
worst thing you want them to do is to state their name at the
Right.
polls.
You don't want them to-
Somebody might be sitting there, and they know, hey, so-and-so's gonna go vote, and they're gonna find out who that person is. It's
Not
that
good.
they're given that card is issued to me, from me. It's got their number on it. That number I get from the state that's on there. It's not something I made up. So this program is just set up for these people that are fearful for their life or might have something happen to them that have to live in seclusion like this, so.
But we're writing the number on their ID as their signature?
No.
No.
Nope. You're just giving them a voter number.
A ballot number.
How would an observer know that this is a confidential?
They'd see the card.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Isn't there 3 in this city?
I have 3 registered right now, yes.
Where do you write the voter number?
There's a line,
On the sheet in the book,
yes,
not on their card. You don't write anything on that.
not on their card.
No.
That card is just
On the same as you would a regular
their
person.
identification.
Okay, next to their number.
Are they assigned to any particular district, or can they go anywhere?
No, they're in that district, yep. They're within a district. So not everybody has all the same confidential voters. Like John has 2 on his list right now. That's in District 2. So they have to vote within their district.
Poll lists are public records, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can access.
Right. Right. But all it's on there is their confidential number.
No, not for but for
Okay.
everybody.
Correct. Yep. Definitely.
After the election.
Yep.
People have access.
They can have it when we're printing them off. If they want a copy of that, they can have it. I don't care. It's just a list of everybody that's registered to vote. But, yeah. Okay, residency. We'll get into this proof of residency thing. So you may only vote in one municipality. Some people think they can vote wherever they want. Residency for voting purposes is 10 days. So why don't we require them to show their proof of residency at the polls? And they're coming to vote. I just told you, they don't have to show proof of residency, only their photo ID. But I'm telling you, they got to be living there for 10 days. Because they state their name and address. That's why it's so important to make sure that they are voting at the address where they live. Because when they filled out their photo or their voter registration, they showed their proof of residency, that they lived there for 10 days. In order to get into that poll book, you had to register. So if they state their name and their address and it's what they're and the poll book at, they don't have to show their proof of residency when they vote. They already did when they got into the book, when they registered. So that's the difference between a photo ID proves now I want to make sure that you're the person that's voting, your ID on voting. When you register, I want to make sure that you live there for 10 days, your residency, when you register.
So if their driver's license has a different address, we're okay if they're in the book, because.
That's correct, because you're only looking at their photo
Right.
and their name, who they are. That 10 days, that residency was established when they registered.
What if they give a different address than the one in the book?
Then you're going to make them register. They have to register them. Even if they change departments, if they say they're in apartment B and they're registered at C, they have to re-register. Yes. So the temporary absence and residency, I live up north all summer, I wish. But I still come to the city of West Bend and I vote in April and I'm heading up north after that. That's fine. That's not up to us to determine where you want your primary voting residency. That is up to the voter. So if they want to live in Florida how many months out of the year, but they still want to vote here, that's their choice. We can't determine that they are, that they live there more, they live in Wisconsin, so you've got to vote there. That's what the Eric poll list did. That's what the fight is. Student status, if the student can determine if they want to vote here, if they lived here and now they're at UW Green Bay and they want to vote up in Green Bay, they have to show that proof of residency up in Green Bay and they can vote up there. That is their choice. But if their status is here and they want to stay here, they can vote here. I'll send them absentee ballot if they're up there, if they can't make it home. Part-time residents are, for instance, somebody lives overseas and they live there for years. And you're thinking, they're not part-time, they're over there permanently. It's not our choice. If they have established residency here and that's where their primary voting residence is, they can still establish that voting location as here. I went backwards. Voter reportedly moved to a nursing home. What are you gonna do? Mrs. Smith is now, you know she's living at that nursing home. She's in your poll book. What are you gonna do?
Call Stephanie.
Sure, you can call me. And what am I gonna tell you? I'm gonna say, so, every parent that you've put in the nursing home, they intend on returning. So it's not up to us, it's up to that nursing home. If they convince that person that, you know, you can vote here, they come here, and you can vote at your convenience, and then they register there, then that'll be taken off our poll list. But we can't say that person moved to a nursing home, we're crossing them off. That we can't do. It has to stay there.
Just like we go there.
Oh, Arlene, I'm going to leave you on the poll list.
We registered there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Arlene was just saying, they go to the nursing homes, and some people, most of them register when they are there. Because it is convenient.
And
But it's,
we do put their previous address on there too, so that can be canceled.
right, and then that's all put together. The previous address is put on the voter registration. Then records are merged then. But it's still their choice. Okay, voter qualifications. This I'm going to get into our little exercise that we got coming up. To be able to vote, you have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be 18 years of age or older. You have to live there for 10 days, as we went through. And you cannot be disqualified from voting. For instance, you're a felon and you haven't reached your separation date. Separation date is set by the courts, saying, okay, you're going to do your time and you're going to have a probation officer up until this date, then you're separated. You're separated from the court. Once you reach that date, you can vote again. And there is a list at all the polling locations I will get into that you should be checking that list when you are registering voters. The ones that are in the poll book, we get notified. They're felons, take them off, they're canceled. But on election day, they register to vote, I can't guarantee they aren't a felon. But you do have a list at the polls that you can look at. Maybe look at it all right, today I'm going to be in charge of voter registration. You can pretty much see last names and kind of keep it in your mind. Check the list when you're registering people. Make sure that they aren't a felon. Question?
To use, I used to be a criminal defense lawyer.
Oh, no.
To use the language of the person involved, you can ask them if they're still on paper.
Right.
They'll know what that means.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Correct. And if they're not, they'll be proud to show you. They will. They should have notification that they're no longer connected with the court system, that they can vote. Did you have a question? No. Can't scratch your head around here. And then the last one is if you placed a wage or a bet on an outcome of an election. So I think
Bookies in Las Vegas.
yes, exactly. So let's say you think somebody isn't a U.S. citizen. You think somebody hasn't lived there for 10 days. What are you going to do? We're going to challenge that voter. So right now we're going to go to page 14. Somebody's been doing their homework.
No,
And we're going to work in groups of 3. So just to stop listening to me talk all day, we're going to go through this challenge documentation. I don't think anybody's ever done a challenge, but my fear is that you will have to someday and you're not going to know how to do it. or that the paperwork is in the bins. Because do you bring them out on election day? Probably not, because we've never had a challenged document filed with the city in the last 3 years, or I've been in elections for quite a few years, I've never seen it. So today I just want to go through, all right, let's just pair off in threes, maybe go with that one. The middle person, you are going to be the challenged elector. So put your name on that line, up on top.
Three?
We'll continue on here with our challenge exercise.
This job?
Welcome back again. The Beard love it.
And you might wonder, where do I get these crazy ideas? But I was at the presidential election training in Green Bay, and we had to go through this, and I thought it was really helpful just to go through the process and to find out at the end, they still get the vote, but on the back of that ballot, it's going to say section whatever, 6.21, and their voter number. And it gets written in the poll book in red, voter voted a challenged ballot. That's your notation that you would make. They still get to vote. From there, I tried researching. I don't know if I have to do anything. If you guys would bring challenge documentation to me after the polls close on election night, I suppose I would forward it on to the DA if it was serious. Or I'm not sure if I have to follow up to make sure that that person actually is a U.S. citizen, 18 years of age, or what happens. So I just...
In a challenge, like, if, I don't think you're 18 years old, and they can prove they're 18 years old, do you have to go through all the paperwork and just say, hey?
No, that one spot that says, now ask the challenger, do you believe that this person is 18 years of age because it showed a photo ID with their age on it, and they say no, or yes, they believe it, then it stops at that point.
Right.
They get the ballot. They don't have to mark anything. The challenge stops. But if they say, no, I don't believe that person, then you have to continue on. Then they'll get a challenge, vote the challenge ballot.
Okay.
When I did the training, I put on that that I voted more than once. That I saw that person voting in District 3. That's what I wrote down. And when the challenger asked me, well, why do you think that person voted at District 3? I saw somebody that looked there, and the challenger says, well, I have an identical twin. She lives in District 3. So then I had to let the person vote.
So Arlene's got an identical twin?
I should have.
Wore the same clothes too then.
Yes.
Okay, so in the top of this form where the challenger has to put their name and address, how do we know it's correct name and address?
Because they're taking an oath, that's all we can do. I mean, we don't know for sure. But
So someone could invalidly knock out the voter and then we would never have a recourse.
right, this is what's in place if there is a case like that. I mean, if they're going to go to that extent to put down a different name and address than what they're actually registered at, it seems, yeah, almost like it's time for jail. I mean, anybody can get around the law if you want to.
Just a quick question. How can you possibly do with a student who votes in Eau Claire and does an absentee ballot in West Bend?
Because they were registered to vote here, and then they requested an absentee ballot.
Correct, and then they did the on-site. They had a record of their paying the electric bill up in Eau Claire, so they
Registered up
same-day
there.
registration and voted up there.
When I
How
put it,
difficult is that? That would be almost impossible to catch that, I think.
we won't catch it on election day, but the next day when the votes are being recorded, the software system, it's called WizVote, will catch it. They'll say this voter already voted.
Oh, so you list all the ones who voted that day, and
I put them all into the system. Not me, Megan does.
every name goes in, like alpha.
No, it's that barcode. We just take a scanner and we scan every name that voted. It has a voter number there. Bing, bing, bing. And we enter them into the system because we're faster than Eau Claire. When they enter theirs, it's gonna say that voter already voted in the city of West Bend. Then that clerk's gonna call me, and then I'll get referred to the district attorney's office.
That's what you do, okay, so you, well, there's no way you can pitch both ballots, because you have no idea which ballot is theirs.
Right. And I did have this happen in Kewaskum. It was a junior and a senior that, the senior voted for the junior, but when the junior found out he's actually gonna get caught, he told us, I mean, this is just what I think happened, because the senior never was registered in Kewaskum. The junior voted in the town of Kewaskum, then he came to the village and he voted, and he thought he could get away with it until he got a call. And then he was backpedaling. Yeah, you're gonna get caught. I mean, it won't be on election day. Both your votes will count. But the district attorney will be.
Have they ever prosecuted voter fraud in Wisconsin?
Well, read the paper. They do all the time.
There is no voter fraud
They
in
never
Wisconsin.
do.
So let's get on to something more fun.
Clarification question.
You have to puncture the tires.
Like in the space world, a lot of people are staying in hotels long term for jobs.
Challenges
Or in the midst of may or may not be in, or a situation where the company gives the person a house that just to stay in like a hotel, would that be considered?
Well, they have to prove if they were registered to vote, and let's say they're in the temporary residency for less than 10 days. They have to go back to where they were registered to vote.
We're talking about different states. You know, people are transferred to new jobs and are put into places, and they'll continue to work there. It's not a temporary thing.
And they have to prove that they lived there for 10 days.
So
That's-
they could show a bill.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, and that would be.
That would be sufficient. Yes.
Is there a situation where someone can vote in the presidential because they're not in their home location, but they're here?
Yes, it's called a presidential only ballot. It's a blank ballot that the election workers have to create on election day, but it's the first time voter for the presidential. And that's the only race that's on your ballot, is the presidential. And I guess I'd have to get back to you. That's all I remember, is that they do have an opportunity to vote. It's only the presidential race, and you have to be a first-time voter in Wisconsin. So it is out there. Now, we'll go on to provisional voting, which is just as fun as challenging. And the first excuse to vote provisional would be if you registered by mail before April 4th, 2014, and it says proof of residency required by your name. We do not have any of them in the city of West Bend, so we don't have to worry about that. But if somebody fails to give their driver's license number or doesn't want to on election day, that would be a reason for voting provisional. Driver's license number. They don't have to show you the driver's license, they just have to provide their number. So if they call up their daughter or whoever on the phone, you can get me my driver's license, that's fine. But they have to show some other proof of residency then, if they are not using that. If an acceptable photo ID is not provided, they can vote provisional. So if you think that their photo ID does not look like them, they could vote provisional. Then they have to bring something in by 4 o'clock on that Friday after the election to show the clerk or bring to the clerk's office, and then that vote would be counted if they prove otherwise.
That ballot does not get into the election though.
Nope, everything is on your blue documentation, your blue envelopes, blue reports, blue paper, and everything's notated, your reports are all filled out, it's on blue paper, so.
They aren't put in the machine.
No. Well, there's no challenge, it's just voting provisional. But the chief inspector has to fill that all out, right? Yeah. That's the challenge. You have a question?
Yeah, clarify. So the person is, bullet number 2, the person is registering they do have a driver's license, at least they told you that, but they won't tell you what the number is, then you still register them and you still give them a ballot, a provisional ballot?
No,
No?
the provisional ballot, yeah, they're not registered. That would all get put with the paperwork, with the provisional ballot. Then they have to bring their driver's license in or call me and give me their number, and then their ballot would be counted. We did have that on election day. She couldn't find her, how did that work? She didn't have a photo ID. And we said, well, you can get one for voting purposes at the DMV, but they will not give you that voting ID for voting purposes if you already were issued a driver's license. And she could not get her driver's license copied, or a copy of it within that day, I think a day or two. 'Cause she did bring it in. She did vote provisional. Who had it, Arlene? Oh, Arlene had it, of course. And she voted provisional, and she brought in her copy of her driver's license, and we tried working with her and with the DMV, and there was nothing we could do. And then I brought in the Municipal Board of Canvassers, and we counted her ballot. So that was a perfect excuse for voting provisional. So, okay. Now I think I have a challenge here. Voter does not have acceptable photo ID. Voter ID. What are you gonna do?
They don't get a ballot.
Provisional.
They're gonna vote provisional. That's correct.
And they have until 1600 Friday afterwards.
Yep.
to Get it to you.
Yes. Show me your photo ID. Now you can have a break. And then we'll finish up. We just have a little bit to do after your break. Okay, we're gonna do a little, since you don't have to do absentees at the polls, and I didn't have to go through all that information, we're gonna cover registering on election day. So they have to fill out a voter registration application. I'm not gonna go through it step by step. We pretty much have gone through that already. If they bring in that pre-printed form off of the Wisconsin Elections website and it's already filled out for you on election day, that's fine. Just look it over, verify, and make sure everything is correct. They still have to show you their proof of residency, and they have to sign it in front of you. But use that voter registration slip. You don't have to fill out a new one.
I still don't understand why you have to show a photo ID at the same time.
Because you're not voting at that time.
You're registering on election day.
Registering.
Well,
So when do you show the photo ID?
When you vote.
Well, you're just gonna walk down 4 feet and vote, so.
Well,
That's what
technically,
you show.
whoever is issuing your voter number, you should be showing your photo ID to that person.
It's usually the guy
So
registering.
some of your polling locations, I don't agree with how you have them set up, but that's your choice. You can do it however you want. But if you're the person that's doing that voter registration and you're issuing the number right away, that's fine. I mean, they have to show your photo ID. But the photo ID is for voting, not for registering. Proof of residency is for registering. I just, in my pea brain, I have to keep that straight. So if you, did you have a question? No. Okay. Just to go over some of the proof of residency. Now remember, this is a current, valid item. Like your Wisconsin driver's license cannot be expired now when you use it for proof of residency. Wisconsin ID card cannot be expired. You can use a real estate tax bill within the last 2 years. You can use a university's student ID card. You can use a utility bill within the last 90 days. You now can use a bank statement or a credit card statement, either or. I don't make up the rules. I just make sure that you know what the law is. Paycheck or pay stub is perfectly fine. A check or other document by a unit of government. Okay, somebody brings in the report card. They're 18 years of age. Got their name, their address on it. Can they use it? Yes, they can if it's for a public school that is a unit of government. If it's a private school, they cannot. Another one to kind of. There will be, if somebody is homeless, I don't know of this in the city, but they'll have a letter saying that they're homeless. They have to fill out that where they sleep the most often on the voter registration. But that would be that letter, that's their proof of residency then. The last one I think is a residential lease. One thing is a lot of people put on their voter registration, car insurance. Can you use that? No. Vehicle insurance. Medical bill is another one you guys try to use a lot. Can't use a medical bill. When could you use a medical bill?
VA hospital.
VA, UW hospital. That's a government document then. Gets a little tricky. And the last one is for our residential care facilities.
Can a person use a car registration?
If it's through the DMV, that's a government document then. But car insurance typically is through a company, so.
I have a question. You talked about homeless, we have a couple of shelters in West Bend, it doesn't have to be my district, but would that be their address then if they are residents of that
Yes.
shelter? Or
Yes.
if they happen to be, I know the family promise moves around from church to church, but they still have that address then?
Mhm. That's correct. That's what, we had a couple of them, right, Megan? Yeah.
Yeah, they do, they have that.
Do you have the new laminated printouts of this
Yes.
with the additions of the
Yeah.
new ones?
Well, the new ones are the credit card and
The credit card is the big one.
Report card.
that one's not gonna be up there. That's the unit of government. That's everybody. This is the ineligible voter list. When they're registering on election day, I had mentioned to you that you should be checking this list to make sure that they're not felons. And everybody within your district is listed on there, not the whole city.
Is this in Holbrook?
This would be with the election inspector's documents that they're bringing to the polls. And it changes for every election. It should have, you make sure you have the most current election date would be on there when we print these off.
And this usually kept in the registration desk, isn't it, where they?
Yeah. A lot, it used to be that it was always in the poll book. I don't know here, but where I was the clerk. And we'd put it in the poll book, and it's like, why do we have it there? All the people in that poll book are pretty much checked, but it's the ones that are registering on election day. That this happened down in Milwaukee, but I'm not gonna say anymore. Let's hope it stays down there. Okay, so when you're registering on election day and you don't have proof of residency, you can't vote.
Yeah.
You cannot vote. You are right. You cannot take a provisional ballot. It's only for photo ID, provisional ballot is. So if you don't have proof of residency, you're not voting. You're going to ask for, the city of West Bend is comprised of districts, so they don't have a long ways to drive. But they have a fishing license. Are you going to use that?
Yes.
Yes. DNR is a unit of government. Yep. All the men always have their fishing license up to date, or hunting license, and women. I shouldn't be prejudiced. Racist, I mean. No, what am I? Sexist. Sexist. Don't even know what I am. Okay, now we're going to do the voter registration exercise, and it's on page, Dick? 18. I thought you, John, you're my go-to guy. So on page 18, we have a voter registration. What is missing? And this, Megan and I and Jean, that's why she retired. You guys drove her to retirement. We're entering these the day after election or for the month after election. And this happens quite often. Things are missing. So I just want to use this exercise so if you can find what's missing on this voter registration. Yes, where did they reside for 10 days? And also previous address. We do like to see that. It just says Madison, Wisconsin. Well, in Madison, that could be any place. But here, if you put down Madison as a previous address, when we're entering that, it'll show us that it already has a voter registration. We see Madison, we're good with that. But a lot of places require, the full address. But if that person says, I can't remember where I lived before. I can't remember that address. But I know it was in the town of so-and-so. Just write that down. That helps us. You get us in the right area.
What if they're out of state, previously voted out of state?
That doesn't do us any good. That's all handled through the state. If somebody looks like somebody voted in Wisconsin that used to live in another state, they handle that down in Madison through WEC. Yep, it's a Wisconsin address. All right, so we're going to see some proof of residency. What did we see? On page 20 is this voter's proof of residency. What is this considered? We're going to fill this out on the bottom of this form. You have proof of residence type. First one, Wisconsin driver's license, Wisconsin ID, utility. Are y'all following? There are little acronyms down here, it's shortened up on the bottom of your voter registration. Proof of residency type. So then the next one's utility, then we have bank and credit card, we have paycheck, student ID, student ID. Then we have the government document, the next one's the lease, government ID, employer ID, residential care facility, that's going to be for my special voting deputies, tax, bill, and then the last one's homeless. So on page 20, what do we have here? It's a government document. It's a letter from me to the voter saying, hey, you didn't provide the right proof of residency. So what they do is they bring this letter in, and that's their proof of residency. Because they got the letter. They live there. So then we would write under proof of residence issuing entity, it's City of West Bend. You could put WB, I'm fine with that. And then the proof of residency number. Now this is just a letter, so put the last four digits of the zip code. Because you're not going to have an account number on there. Okay, and now we'll go on to, are there any questions finding that on the bottom? Where to fill that in?
So where to fill this in, the official use? You filled it in as you're registering them.
Like you're registering them, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're all official there. And then you're also going to sign it too, official signature. Okay, we're on page 21. We'll do another voter registration application. What's missing on this voter registration? The Wisconsin driver's license, yes. Number 7, the first box should be checked. You have to see their driver's license. If they do not have a driver's license, then you can use their last 4 digits of the Social Security number. Or if they don't have a driver's license or a Social Security card, then they have to mark the third one and say that they have neither one. And when they sign that, they're saying they don't have a driver's license or a Social Security number.
So you said social security card, but they can give you their number without showing you the card.
Correct. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay, it's just.
I know what I meant. Okay. Oh, sure.
What was that question she just asked?
I said card, but I don't have to see. You don't have to see their card. You just have to have their last 4 numbers. Yeah, you don't have to see the card.
If we memorized our number and tell you that's all we need.
If you are never issued a driver's license.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, what is your proof of residency on page 23 for this voter? So which one are you going to circle?
Bank CC.
Bank CC. It's a, that doesn't matter. Well, this
years
one's-
old?
Well, they're really, a utility bill is within the last 90 days. But I don't know what a bank one was. You're really testing me here. You're not supposed to look at that date. What am I looking at for the bank statement?
No date.
It doesn't have expiration.
Whenever.
If you want. I think you're gonna use something else. Okay, what's the account number? What, you're gonna put down UW Credit Union for the entity. On proof of residence issuing entity, UW Credit Union. And for the account number, what are you, it's either 2 or 4. We're gonna put down 4 numbers. What are they?
The last 4 numbers.
2562.
2562.
Where are you reading?
Them are the numbers you're going to be putting down. And
Oh, got it.
I'm-
Statement. Yeah, no, I honestly couldn't see it.
I couldn't see it either.
we're on page 22. And then the proof of residency is on page 23. Sorry, I might be confusing.
Huh? Well, she looked it up and there's
Sorry,
nothing
next
said,
page.
so nobody knows.
All right, we're on page 24 right now. We have another voter registration application. What is missing?
Date of birth.
The date of birth is missing, correct.
Where is it?
And make sure you don't put down the election date. You wouldn't believe how many people are born on the election. And then page 25 is your proof of residency. What are you looking at for proof of residency?
Tax bill.
Tax form.
Correct. What is the entity?
Washington County.
City of West Bend.
Oh, okay.
And what number are you going to put down? 4 numbers.
0799.
0302, the parcel number. If you do the bill number, that's fine too, the 0799. That would be fine, there's only one of them.
2026?
Okay, good job. Now we're on page 27. What is wrong with this voter registration?
20 what?
Other than Megan has really neat handwriting. Correct.
What was that?
Under identification, number 7, they use the Illinois license. You have to use a Wisconsin driver's license.
Good point.
Proof of
So
residency.
you can't, we've seen this already where you put down somebody else's. Kentucky we had last time.
Well, it's Chicago, I mean.
Dick, what do you mean by that? Okay, and on page 29, what did you see for proof of residency? Utility bill. What entity? City West Bend. What number? What?
2001.
Yes.
2001. That is correct. Hey, you guys did great on that. We're not going to have any mistakes next time we have to enter voter registration. What's that?
Was that a government document that what's been, water
Utility. UTIL. Now we're going to quickly go through some election day issues and get you out of here hopefully by noon. One of the things that we have on election day is election observers. Just make sure you have a location set up that your observers are 3 to 8 feet from the poll book, that they can hear the names being announced. Just provide some accommodation. If you do have election day observers, they should be checking in with your chief inspectors. They have to fill out that report on there, and then they get a name tag.
Show the ID sign. They have to show their ID.
And show you their ID, correct. Electioneering is anything that's influencing how you're going to be voting. It can cannot happen within 100 feet of a public entrance to a polling place. If it happens across the street and it's someone's house and there's a sign up, vote for so-and-so, that is fine, that's private property. They can do what they want. Some considerations are bumper stickers by Leanne, exit polls, and bake sales and other activities. Bake sales are perfectly fine, it's not influencing how you're gonna vote. Curbside voting is something that it can happen for somebody that cannot make it into the polls, have a broken leg or just recently released from the hospital or anything. They cannot get into the polls. 2 inspectors take the ballot out to the car. They announce, who is curbside voting, so they state their name and address. They're exempt from signing the poll book, but they still have to show you a photo ID in the car, the election workers.
The observer goes along too.
The
The observer goes along too.
But the observer cannot get in their car. After a while, when you look at the end of your election, I have all the little challenges, and one of them is a question is, can the observer get in your car? No. At the presidential election, this might happen. Your ballot box might get full. I'm going to have extra ballot bags in there. Grab a new ballot bag, announce the election box is full. Election inspectors are emptying the ballots from the box. Just break the seal, empty the box, put it in your ballot bag, sign that ballot bag, seal it back up, seal your election equipment back up, notate it on your inspector statement. Perfectly fine. Do not put them in a garbage bag and make it look like you're throwing them out.
I don't think that would come.
Okay, and this is my last slide. You are finished for the night. Make sure all your documents are filled out. Help your chief inspector with the inspector statement. The poll list has to be signed. Tally sheets, that's your write-in tally sheet that you have to do for the night. It's getting easier because of what you have to count. You don't have to count the Mickey Mouses anymore in the dot box. Your tapes, you always print off the number of tapes according to if there's a school district race or not. In there's a school district, then there's always 3 tapes. If there isn't, then there's 2. 1 for me, 1 for the county, 1 for the school. That would be 3. Usually I have a note on your bin saying how many tapes to print. You print the same amount in the morning, saying you have 0 voters when you're starting in that morning as you do it at night. So if you print 3 in the morning, you're going to print 3 at night. Do not separate them. Keep them in one big circle. That's the way we like them. Do not cut, yep. And then at the end of the night, I just want to go over this because we do have contested races for April. End of the night, you might have a line because we have so many things on the ballot. You're going to announce the polls are now closed. Anybody in line will be given, anybody in line at 8 p.m. will be given the opportunity to vote. The officer, you put an end of line officer, that's not a police officer. You're an officer. Any of you guys, election workers are officers. Place one of you at the end of the line. Anybody that comes after that saying the polls are closed, you can no longer vote. It's one of your election workers you're going to put at the end of the line. When you are all done, you're going to run your tapes. You can announce the results. Your chief inspector should probably be doing this, saying who got what for votes, because your candidates can now be at the polls because the polls are closed. So your candidates can be there observing. So that might happen on election because we have some contested races in April. And then that's when you're doing your municipal canvass. You're going to be finishing up all your paperwork, printing off your tapes, announce your results, packing everything up, and heading back to. But they consider that a canvass. You are finishing up your paperwork for that election. So, does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I am done. Yes?
When it's time for the polls to close and there's a line, you still, on the end of line official, they should announce the polls are closed.
Correct.
Right? Even though there are people in line.
Yes. Yep, but the people in line get an opportunity to vote, but the polls, that way anybody that's coming up knows they're closed. You're not voting anymore after that. Don't lock the door, because a candidate might want to get in, Arlene. So you still have to leave your doors open. I know the polls are closed, you'd like to just lock everybody out, but people can come and observe you. So, all right, thank you very much.